I'm paraphrasing, but Alec Baldwin said recently that he's looking forward to the truth coming out. So we're looking forward to his testimony under oath in his deposition as to what he thinks the truth really is.
Alec Baldwin may have cleared one legal hurdle, but the family of Helena Hutchins is vowing to seek justice in civil court. We have all of the latest on the appeals in Baldwin's case. And a woman dies after being set ablaze on a New York subway. We'll analyze that viral video and take a closer look at the suspect who has people questioning public safety. Also this hour, the latest on the Sean Diddy Combs saga as he goes from caviar to commissary. Why isn't the disgraced music mogul eating jail food? And will his famous ex-girlfriend be dragged in his newest court battle? Plus, newly released video of a home invasion, eerily similar to Bryan Kohberger's case. Is this separate incident raising reasonable doubt for his trial? It's all next, right here on Opening Statements. Welcome to Opening Statements. I'm Julia Janae, in for your host, Julie Grant, this morning. Thank you so much for being with us. Happy holidays. Just like in an actual trial, we are getting you ready for what's ahead in court. Now, of course, most courts are closed across the country this morning, but we are bringing you unaired hearings against two defendants who are charged in a deadly home invasion. That begins next hour. But for now, let's get to our top story. The man accused of lighting a woman on fire and then fanning the flames with his shirt is due back in court tomorrow. The deadly incident happened on a New York subway this past Sunday, and it has since gone viral, causing an uproar about public safety and undocumented immigrants. Police say they don't know why the woman was attacked, but a man calmly approached her and lit her clothing on fire. Multiple people recorded this horrifying event, and a warning as we watch it together. Some may find this disturbing.
Sorry to his family. This is a person right here. Oh, oh, bro. Yo. Oh, no.
Unimaginable, that reaction, seeing this, and of course the life lost of that young woman. Now, in the immediate aftermath, police released this image of the suspect. He was then taken into custody hours later after some high schoolers identified him as Sebastian Zapata. This is according to federal officials. He's a 33-year-old Guatemalan citizen who allegedly entered the U.S. illegally back in 2018 and was deported. He was arraigned on Tuesday, but did not enter a plea. Authorities have not released the name of the woman that he allegedly killed. So here to discuss, we have a panel to talk about just this surprising news out of New York and what could be ahead for a case like this. Criminal defense attorney and former prosecutor Jack Rice is with us. We also have Lieutenant and retired commanding officer of the Nassau County K-9 unit, Mike Gold from New York, is with us as well. Thank you both for joining us this morning. Happy holidays to both of you, but what a case that we are talking about today. Mike Gold, I want to start with you. You're there in New York, have that experience with law enforcement that's there. The reaction to this happening in relation to a subway, it does seem like more and more cases that are related to the subway are grabbing national headlines.
Right. Good morning, Julia. Yeah, absolutely. So this is not uncommon, sadly. The burning, of course, the incinerating of a human being is a little bit unusual, but it happened last year in Oklahoma. Most people were set on fire. So violence on the subway, it's up. Murders are up. This year, there was 9 murders to date on the system. It's a magnet for crime because of the atmosphere there, as well as, the district attorney in Manhattan downgraded a lot of these crimes. So fare jumping, trespassing, resisting arrest is no longer a prosecutorial offense in New York City. So access to the subway system, it's a magnet for homeless people and, of course, mentally ill people. Untreated mental illness is a huge problem in all of our cities throughout the country.
Absolutely. Jack Rice, let me get your analysis of this, because the immigration status is going to be commented on not only inside of the court system, but the public discussion that happens about a case like this. And I remember hearing questions often when we have a case of a person who has an undocumented status, where people question, once there is an accusation of a crime, why our criminal justice system is the one that handles them. Can you talk about why, for public safety and public service reasons, that it's our criminal justice system, if the crime is committed here, that has complete jurisdiction over it, rather than deporting someone again after a crime like this?
Of course. It's called jurisdiction. And what jurisdiction is really about is we look at where the crime was committed and what happens there. It's not about how the person got here, whether they were here legally, whether they were here without documentation, whether or not they snuck in, whether or not they came in on an airplane. None of that matters per se. It's about where it was committed. But when we think about the jurisdiction itself, typically you'll see a split, and that split is in a state. If it's New York, you might see something happen like Mangione. That's the case with the insurance CEO. And in that particular case, what we saw was somebody charged in state court and then also charged in federal court. In this case, we're looking at a state court jurisdiction for murder. And so they're really going to focus in on that. But maybe the bigger question is exactly how much of this evidence is going to come in. And even this question of the coming in without documentation. I have no doubt if the prosecutors could find a way to get that before a jury, they will certainly try to do so.
Mike, this is a situation where they have not, in terms of officials, released the name, identity of the victim in this case. We understand from some reports she's a young woman, and by all accounts, there's no connection between these two. There was no premeditation in terms of the person, that she may have been sleeping when this all started. Can you talk about what the safety measures or security is like in the subway system? We understand that cameras were recently installed in the last 12 months by order of the governor, was it?
Yeah, absolutely. So the subway system is dangerous. You can travel if you're street smart. You have to be you have to have situational awareness. You know, I've been riding the New York City subways since the 1960s, and I've watched the pendulum swing to a point where they were very safe. In the 80s and 90s, they were extremely dangerous. And now it's back again. It's going in that direction. There's an art. You don't go near the edge of the platform. You don't make eye contact with people. You walk on a subway car, you look left and right. And anyone who rides the New York City subways intuitively knows how to commute on these trains. Sometimes you walk in a car and you look around and you back right out of it, because once that train starts moving, and once it comes to it's moving, you're stuck. You're trapped in like a big elevator. And there's commuters, there's tourists, there's mentally ill, emotionally disturbed people, as well as a criminal element, and you're all trapped. You have no ability to fight or flee. And this is analogous to what happened in the Daniel Penny case, I said. So it's dangerous. The cameras, of course, help solving crimes, as we saw in the Mangione case, but they don't necessarily prevent them whatsoever.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned Daniel Penny, because I think incidents like this add to the discussion about his acquittal, of course, for that accusation that he attacked a mentally ill man, that he said that he feared for his life, feared for the safety of other people when he put him in that deadly chokehold. Jack Rice, let's talk about people who are around and may see these things, because some people are noting in that video that there are people who seem to walk by while that fire is going on, including an officer, which police officials have said that some officers responded, some had to go and get a fire extinguisher. They didn't know about the person involved. They just wanted to help with the fire. But the bystander impact, what do we require, both publicly and legally, from bystanders when you see something like this happen?
You know, that it's such a wonderful question, Julia, because when we're looking at something like this, and I was struck by it myself as I'm watching this with everybody else, you see people standing around going, oh my God, or just simply standing around or watching, or just videotaping. And it really does make you wonder, as we sit back in some sort of voyeuristic mentality, as we watch brutality take place before us and do simply nothing. Watching that officer simply walk by, it's the part of me that's thinking, you don't essentially throw this person to the ground, at least trying to snuff out some of those flames. What is happening? Well, when we think about the obligation, generally speaking, there is not one, not when it comes to people who happen to be on the train, people who happen to be on the platform. They don't have an obligation. It's different when you're talking about public officials, when you're talking about police officers who have particular jobs or other life-saving measures that are required by those in the system. And those are different. But as we watch this, it really does sort of highlight how we seem to watch things on the internet, how we watch these and go, oh my gosh, that's amazing or impossible or horrifying. And yet what we do is we sit back with our arms crossed and watch it burn.
Yeah, it certainly seems like raising a camera, a phone camera, some people feel like that is helping, and eventually things like that may have impacted catching the person that police say was involved. That's all the time we have for on this topic, but Mike Gold and Jack Rice, thank you so much for weighing in. Both of you are sticking around. We have a lot more ahead. We're going to talk about some breaking news that happened this week. Alec Baldwin's manslaughter case finally officially over for the actor, and the family of the victim, Helena Hutchins, not happy about that development.
My clients believe that there was no justice because an impartial jury was not given the opportunity to reach a verdict regarding the guilt or innocence of Alec Baldwin.
Why victims' rights advocate Gloria Allred is calling the New Mexico Attorney General the Grinch who stole Christmas, and what that means for Baldwin's civil case. Plus, Sean Diddy Combs may be the only one not gaining weight this holiday season, as he's reportedly refusing to eat his prison food. We have all of that and more coming up.
Coming soon to Court TV.
It's the biggest story that we're covering.
He is the boogeyman.
Lori Daybell.
She said, I will have you destroyed.
She's got another murder trial coming up.
A social media sensation, now a suspected killer.
We will not stop fighting. We have no quit.
Sean Diddy Combs arrested on a federal indictment.
The high-stakes trials you don't want to miss. Coming soon. Only on Court TV.
Sean Combs led and participated in a racketeering conspiracy.
The trauma of the assault has taken a toll.
We are focused on Diddy, but this is in his action, but this is really about securing the safety of the victims and the public.
How are you all feeling right now? Anything you want to say?
I believe he's innocent, and we're going to fight this case with all of our might until we don't have to fight anymore.
Now for what's trending in true crime. Sean Diddy Combs making headlines again. Those who were at his latest court appearance reported that he did look astonishingly thinner. And now we're getting some new information. Reports say that that weight loss may be related to his refusal to eat the typical prison food, and that could be out of fear for his own safety. And reports say that the former music tycoon is only receiving meals that are available from the MDC, Metropolitan Detention Center there in Brooklyn's commissary list. Now, he's been in detention since his arrest back in September, and his attempts to be released on bond, and they have been numerous, have all been unsuccessful. So this morning, we're wondering if he can survive on just commissary food. Let's bring in our panel to discuss. We have criminal defense attorney and former prosecutor Jack Rice still with us, and joining the conversation now, criminal defense and civil attorney John Phillips and federal trial attorney Alexis Rosenberg. Glad to have you all on this morning to discuss this. John Phillips, let me start with you. You are no stranger to having a high-profile client behind bars, having to communicate with them, check on them to see how things are going. Your thoughts on whether this is a thing? Is it rare or common for prisoners to be able to refuse their typical food and just go with commissary?
Oh, sorry, I didn't realize it was to me.
Oh,
yeah,
John.
for sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
So Joe Exotic, well, let's just start there on the day after Christmas, absolutely hates commissary food. And he's not prominent, right? Like, he didn't come from wealth. And so you've got to adapt to you know, the lowest common denominator of food. The state, the Fed just wants to give you enough nutrients to keep you going. So, you know, there is this alternative where you can order food, but you're going, in the case of Diddy, you're going from where, you know, somebody had a chef to food that's less quality than Chef Boyardee. And it's a huge adjustment for folks.
Yeah, we've got a list of what is on the commissary and just a couple of things there. It's about $3.45 for a chicken pouch. It's $1.85 for curry powder. You can even get toiletries like cocoa butter for $4. A long list, but certainly not the type of food that Sean Diddy Combs has been used to. Alexis, weigh in on this and if this could be in relation to him being worried behind bars because of his high-profile status and maybe avoiding the food inside.
Yeah, I definitely don't think there's caviar and Dom on that list. I think at a certain point they're going to jump in and not allow him to, in essence, starve himself. They could go in and potentially, force, feed him through a feeding tube or something of that nature. Hopefully it won't get to that. I think at this point, maybe it's just he's not liking what's on the menu.
And Jack, I want to switch gears to our next question. It has to do with new news that his ex-girlfriend, Jennifer Lopez, is now being dragged into a $400 million lawsuit. And it's one that's unique because it's being filed by a 55-year-old male prisoner named Derek Lee Cardello. And Cardello Smith claims that Diddy assaulted him back at a Holiday Inn in Detroit in 1997. And he says he plans to call Jennifer Lopez as a key witness because he believes she has information about this alleged assault due to her dating Diddy from 1999 to 2001. We haven't heard anything from J-Lo on this allegation. She really hasn't said anything about her ex-beau. But do you think a jury would find her testimony credible, or could they potentially find her in any way culpable?
Yeah, it's a great question because we've seen this before when you have a very high-profile person who's been charged, and especially when you start seeing those lawsuits start to come in, and you'll see, oh, we're going to depose this person, we're going to call this person as a witness, and they expand the number of people that they want to talk to. And yet, at the same time, when we also think about this, it's not particularly shocking that J-Lo has really tried to keep a low profile on this. You've seen essentially everybody look at Diddy and push themselves away as fast as they could, while for many, many years they were working very, very closely together or seen in public together. Now anybody and everybody is trying to deny or simply forgot that they had a relationship with him. So the real question will be, what does she know? Is there something relevant here? Is there a way for her to simply wiggle out and say this is just harassment and not actually anything else? So it may come down to that deposition to see if there's something to this or not, because we've seen this before where it starts to feel like a shakedown. You just don't know what it is at this point.
Yeah, John Phillips, I'm going to add some facts here. This particular prisoner already got a default judgment of $100 million because Diddy didn't respond to the lawsuit that he filed. And reportedly, this is a prisoner who files a lot. So I feel like typically an attorney who's representing both Diddy or Jennifer Lopez would tell them not to worry about it, to ignore it. But I think we're in a different situation with all of these lawsuits that are swirling around Diddy. What are your thoughts?
We are. Once somebody's aware of a lawsuit, typically, particularly somebody of wealth or prominence, would file a motion to dismiss, a motion to stay discovery, explain to the judge, Your Honor, this is an inmate who, pretends to be an attorney and files these lawsuits out of harassment. But on the same token, that inmate has done well enough to know the default rules, has done well enough to try to position himself as the prominent jailhouse lawyer, quote in quotes. And so, you know, certainly we would advise our celebrity clients, just don't talk about it, but let's get a motion to dismiss filed on your behalf and you know, start posturing with the court early that this is harassment.
So, Alexis, I want to add something to it as well. We understand from reporting by USA Today, we don't know if this is true. It's also what they have learned from the filings by this individual, that at one point during this time that this inmate was behind bars, he says that Sean Diddy Combs met with him and offered him $2.3 million to have this case go away. If that's true, what do you think that could say about the credibility of this case? And do you think they can prove that there was this meeting?
Well, they're going to be able to see if, you know, Sean Diddy Combs met with him in jail, if he was a visitor while he was in jail. You know, if he's offering that type of money, I don't know, $2 million to him isn't really that much money. I mean, to the rest of us, it is. So it could be nuisance, or it could be taken as there was some credibility to what, you know, he is alleging here. I think he is also going to potentially have a hard time getting J-Lo, you know, able to come under these circumstances to testify. But I do agree that the timing of her relationship with him and all of these allegations swirling around does draw into question as to what exactly she, where, if she was present for some of these things.
So many things that Diddy is facing, both criminally and civilly. We will see what happens. We know in his criminal case, we're anticipating that by the end of the year, so in just a couple of days, his attorney should be getting the names of all of the accusers that the government has that they are going to be using in the case against him. Jack, John, and Alexis are sticking around. We have to get to a break, but coming up, we're going to talk about another high-profile defendant, Alec Baldwin, a defendant no more. His manslaughter case officially over, but not everyone is happy about it.
Clearly, the rights of Alec Baldwin were protected, but the due process rights of the victims, Helena Hutchins and her parents and her sister, were violated.
A representative for the family of victim cinematographer Helena Hutchins is speaking out and says that they intend to pursue civil charges that are pending. Plus, Bryan Kohberger investigated for an eerily similar home invasion 1 year before the University of Idaho slayings. What this could mean for the quadruple murder trial still ahead.
Call now.
Welcome back to Opening Statements. I'm Julia Janae in for Julie Grant this morning, and we are turning our attention and spotlight on the case against Alec Baldwin and his Rust manslaughter case. It's now officially completely over. On Monday, the Santa Fe District Attorney's Office announced that Special Prosecutor Carrie Morrissey is withdrawing her appeal against the actor, which would have challenged the court's dismissal of criminal charges against Baldwin in the shooting death of cinematographer Helena Hutchins on the set of Rust in 2021. You saw it here on Court TV, where Baldwin's trial abruptly ended in the middle of it after the judge dismissed the case on allegations that police and prosecutors had improperly withheld evidence from the defense. Now, we heard this week from Gloria Allred, who represents the family of Helena Hutchins. She spoke at a press conference on Christmas Eve, calling the New Mexico Attorney General the Grinch who stole Christmas.
Although the Attorney General of New Mexico, Raul Torres, is the Grinch who stole this Christmas, we will work to assure that a future Christmas will be without this Grinch.
All of this because in that notice of withdrawal of appeal, it was indicated that the Attorney General's office stated that they would not exhaustively pursue this appeal. Now, Allred also stated that although Helena's parents were denied justice in the criminal case, that she would continue to fight for justice in their civil lawsuit against Baldwin and Rust Productions. Let's talk about this new development in the case with criminal defense and civil attorney John Phillips and federal trial attorney Alexis Rosenberg. Alexis, let me start with you. We're in a situation where Alec Baldwin now is not going to have this over his head. What is that going to change now for the civil case? I know we're going to talk about it more with now he could sit or will sit for a civil deposition because he can't plead the Fifth anymore.
So if they would have been able to get a conviction, or if he would have taken a plea in the civil case, there would have been an inference of wrongdoing that they would have been able to present to the civil jury. So they're not going to have that. Although the rest of it doesn't much change, they still are going to have the ability to put in evidence about the alleged wrongdoing, and all of the evidence and different things that have already come forward. They're going to be able to present a great deal of that to the jury. And yes, he's not, as you stated, he's not going to be able to plead the fifth because we do not have the situation of the pending criminal charges against him at this time.
And John Phillips, we haven't heard any statement from Alec Baldwin. He's been pretty quiet since those criminal charges, because really everything he was saying was getting put in front of the media and going viral. He did, I noticed, pin on his Twitter X account the New York Times article stating that this appeal is being withdrawn. So a silent comment on what's happening against him. But what do you think is going to happen now? We're going to see him talk, or is the civil case still another cloud that is over him?
Justice is spelled one way, but it's defined many different ways. So when you don't have the criminal justice system, prosecuting and trying to get criminal justice, there's the fallback civil justice system. And let me tell you, it's a little easier. It's based upon reason. It's based upon a feather's weight tilting the scales. So, in those cases, and there's one more type of justice, the court of public opinion, which is sometimes just as important. But the depositions you're going to see of Alec Baldwin, the determination of were his actions reasonable, way easier to prove than the criminal reasonable beyond a reasonable doubt, should have, shouldn't have. It's going to be a long couple of years for Mr. Baldwin and those that were around this production.
Let's take a look back at what Gloria Allred had to say, really condemning the Attorney General's office for not supporting Carrie Morrissey in her fight to continue to try and get these charges levied against Baldwin.
First, Judge Marlo Summer took the criminal case away from the jury, depriving them of the ability to decide the criminal case against Alec Baldwin, in which he was charged with involuntary manslaughter. Then the New Mexico Attorney General, Raul Torres, decided that he would not allow the justices of the New Mexico's appellate court to decide if the trial judge's decision was correct, or if the trial court had wrongfully decided the case, and if, as a result, there should be a new trial. Clearly, the rights of Alec Baldwin were protected, but the due process rights of the victims, Helena Hutchins and her parents and her sister, were violated.
Yeah, we also understand from that same press conference that Gloria Allred said her sister and family say that he never apologized and should be held responsible. But Alexis, John's analysis is that it's going to be so much easier in civil court versus criminal court. Do you think this is actually a benefit to the family in some weird way, that they can now get on with the civil case because there was a motion for a stay at this point in the civil case because of the criminal charges?
Easier. The standard is much lower. But there's a lot of confusion about this related to the civil case, because if you remember, Alec Baldwin himself settled with the son and with the husband. And this is now the father and the sister. And in New Mexico in civil court, they have this rule that they can't actually personally bring it, that they have to bring it on behalf of the estate and have to be appointed basically as the representative of the estate. So that is confusing, and it's now recently come out that there may be some issues with the settlement with Alec Baldwin and that he had with the husband and the son, and that the other producers made, as well as whether payment was made pursuant to that agreement.
So Carrie Morrissey, I want to go back to her, the special prosecutor, because she was really a lone wolf in all of this. The judge didn't agree with her. Her own co-counsel, special counsel, Erlinda Johnson didn't agree with her. And now the Attorney General's office even backing off of this fight that she was persistent in pursuing. Let's take a listen back to her when she called herself against all advice to the stand.
Ammunition that is in the state of Arizona that has never left Arizona did not strike me that it had significant evidentiary value. Then, and I will say, I believe I actually saw a photo of it. At that point in time, I was able to look at the ammunition myself, and it was visibly dissimilar than the rounds from the set of Rust.
Gloria Allred praised Morrissey, said she's been unfairly attacked in all of this. John Phillips, your thoughts on Special Prosecutor Morrissey?
Look, I've met Gloria Allred at a party years ago that Bob Shapiro threw. She is one of the most media-savvy, no-nonsense lawyers that's ever existed, right? So, you know, when you're media-savvy, sometimes you say things for the cameras. And certainly, I think here she, you know, has to support a side, right? I'm not there, right? I don't necessarily agree here, but you know what we're gonna wind up dealing with, and you know my co-counsel from Florida pointed it out, is what are we even doing with this lawsuit? You know, in Florida, it's very clear. It's all lawsuits must come from a personal representative. And, you know, it seems like there was some panic in how to handle this civil lawsuit in the beginning. And now Gloria Allred seems to be kind of doubling down or using, you know, some pomp and circumstance to say, don't look over there, look over here.
Yeah, Alexis, just real quick before we have to go to break, it again does seem strange that the civil case isn't the thing that they are most focused on, because what do you think the outcome would have been if a jury did get this case and they found him not guilty? How would that have impacted the civil case?
It would have had a huge impact on the civil case. I think at this point, as brought up, she just wants the family to feel heard.
Yeah, and the family does not approve, and the prosecutors were open about that. They did not agree with this withdrawal of the appeal. Alexis Rosenberg, John Phillips, thank you so much for your analysis for this topic. You're both sticking around. We have more ahead after this break. The man who's accused in the Idaho College murders, Bryan Kohberger. He was also investigated at one point for another home invasion earlier that year.
So I was sleeping right here, and I'm a really heavy sleeper, but I heard the door open. Oh, okay. And I saw someone, I saw the ski mask first.
We're going to talk about the results of that investigation and if it could tip the scale in Bryan Kohberger's upcoming murder trial.
Coming soon to Court TV.
It's the biggest story that we're covering.
He is the boogeyman.
Lori Daybell.
She said, I will have you destroyed.
She's got another murder trial coming up.
A social media sensation, now a suspected killer.
We will not stop fighting. We have no quit.
Sean Diddy Combs arrested on a federal indictment.
The high-stakes trials you don't want to miss. Coming soon. Only on Court TV.
Free.
Now for what's tipping the scales. Bryan Kohberger, the suspect in the 2022 brutal murders of 4 University of Idaho students, was previously investigated in a home invasion that happened a year before the college killings in Idaho. According to multiple reports on the investigation, police responded to the 2021 incident that was less than 10 miles from where those residents, those 4 Idaho students, lived. Now, the woman in that described a terrifying ordeal to police. Here's a listen to a portion of that body camera.
I have a couple questions for you.
Okay.
Where did you see this person?
I was asleep, and then I woke up
Okay.
And it was just me and Sadie home at the time, and we both lived down in the basement, and my door was closed. I heard my door open, and I looked over, and someone was wearing a ski mask and had a knife like this.
Okay.
And so I kicked the out of their stomach and screamed super loud, and they like flew back into my closet and then ran out my door and up the stairs.
Okay, and that's the last you know is they ran up the stairs?
Yeah, and then when they got home, this back door was wide open.
Okay, how long ago did this happen?
Maybe 15, 20 minutes at most.
Okay. And so between the four of you, it's the whole house?
Yeah.
No one else is there?
There's another unit in the front, but there's just like one person that lives down there. And then the four of us live upstairs.
Oh, it's just chilling. The ski mask, the knife, the back door. Now, this was, again, 1 year before the killing of those 4 university students. And then after, it was an unsolved case until then. And then after those killings and then the arrest of Bryan Kohberger, police looked into Kohberger as possibly being connected to that home invasion as well. He was investigated and later cleared. But what we're asking is if this strange and eerily similar incident that happened just 10 miles away from where this quadruple murder happened, could it tip the scales in favor of Kohberger in his upcoming murder trial? Let's bring back in our panel to discuss. We have with us criminal defense attorney and former prosecutor Jack Rice, criminal defense and civil attorney John Phillips, and lieutenant and retired commanding officer of the Nassau County K-9 unit Mike Gould is with us as well. Mike, let me start with you. What's the process in going back through a case that is already unsolved, but then you get a new case, and I'm assuming it's not instant, but eventually there are some connections that are made?
Right, Julia. Yeah, so there's remarkable similarities here. You know, one of the things, contrary to popular belief, eyewitness testimony is not as reliable as scientific evidence, photographic evidence, DNA, cell phone. So if they excluded him, I hope they're right, because there's only 2 possibilities. He was involved, which would help the prosecution, or he wasn't involved, and of course that's going to affect the defense, because now there's a murderer running around there that's not Kohberger. But I'll defer to the attorneys on the legal minds on that. But from a police standpoint, they've obviously excluded him. But just because he wasn't the right height, I've had witnesses be off by 6 inches on a person's height or weight. So it's not as reliable as people would think.
Yeah, those differences in the height could have been part of why they cleared him. It's addition to the fact that he was not found to have been in that area because he hadn't started school there in Idaho or in Washington at that time. But Jack Rice, weigh in on that. Mike is talking about that potential for reasonable doubt if there's someone else who could have committed these crimes.
Yeah, the term we would call that is an alternate perpetrator. If you think about this, let's go back to 2021 for a second. And if I'm defending Kohberger in a case like this, what I'm arguing is whoever it was in 2021 who did this, who broke into this house, what have we got? 10 miles away in Idaho, a man with a mask that is black, the black mask, that has a knife, that doesn't speak. It sounds everything like the person who killed the 4 students in Idaho in 2022. And so it's that same MO. And if you can pin that, really shift and move all of those guesses, all of those beliefs by the state to the 2021 case and say, the police cleared Kohberger. It couldn't have been him. It was whoever it was in that house at that time. What that does is it places much more of a burden on the state to articulate what they're saying and not just say, trust us, we have it right. They better need to prove that it's right for a jury of 12.
Yeah, John Phillips, what does this development, this released body camera footage say to you about the case, if anything?
Look, sometimes as a lawyer, you work, you study your case, you do everything you can, and sometimes a little luck falls on your desk. And for the defense team, this is exactly what happened. You know, they've got a factually similar incident when your client didn't meet the physical requirements, didn't meet the geographical requirements, had an alibi, but it's enough to say, wasn't me. And so, you know, sometimes you just need a little luck in the practice of law. And I think this is a big, big deal for the defense team because you can just keep pointing, no, you know, they blame my client for everything. They blamed him here. They blamed him there. It's a fortuitous day, as they say.
Love the demonstrative aid, John Phillips. Let's take a look back, though, at more of that body camera footage, again, from this October of 2021 incident that happened in Washington, very close to where Bryan Kohberger would eventually become a student.
It's just important to, you know, how they're holding the knife and stuff is, I have to articulate that, yeah.
So yeah, she was holding the knife above her.
Okay, so this is all what she told you. You didn't see any of this?
Yeah,
okay.
no, I didn't see any of this. I was in my room and the doors were closed.
And she kicked him?
Yeah.
Did she say where she kicked him?
She said she kicked him in the stomach.
Kicked him in the stomach. So, like, did she say how or emotion?
No.
Okay.
I mean, I'm assuming she probably just, and like the way that her room is set up, her bed is right here, up against the wall, and then the door is right here directly next to it. So when they walk in, they would be standing like right here next to her bed. And so I'm assuming she got up and kicked them because she has a closet that's right here.
Okay.
And her bed is right here, and so they were right here. I'm assuming she kicked them in the stomach. They fell into the closet, and then they ran upstairs.
Oh, it's just eerie, Mike, when you hear this. And I'm wondering how much attention this incident got during that time to help people be on more alert. I don't know, didn't live in that area during that time, but what are you hearing about potentially a suspect who could have escalated? Because thankfully, these victims were able to survive this unharmed.
Right. So first of all, this is a, you know, suburban, maybe a rural area. So I don't think home invasions are that common. So whether it got media attention or not, we don't know that. But the victim's reaction to this probably saved their lives. At one point, he got scared and ran away. But again, the similarities are considering the geographic area of the country this is in. It's very unique. So the hope is, and again, all the defense has to do is so reasonable doubt. They need one juror to say, "Come on now, there's just too much." So it's going to be incumbent on law enforcement to really exclude that, make that alibi stick. And who knows if private investigators or somebody else is going to find out that he could possibly be the suspect. And that's all it has to be. He has to possibly be it. And that might take one juror and say, look, this is no good.
Jack Rice, I know it's going to be infuriating for the family of these victims when they see, if they see a filing like this from the defense, but what can we be on the lookout for? What will indicate that this is where they go with it, or do they save it for trial and perhaps something that they bring out in their case?
Well, a couple of things I'm thinking about. If I'm defending Kohberger, one of the things I will first do is I'm going to start making discovery demands to see what else they have on this, what they have on this specific investigation, what they did, what they failed to do. And then I want to expand that, because if this is just coming out now, how many others did they botch? If I'm making the argument that the failure was on the state to investigate this case correctly, I want to see what they did and failed to do. Then finally, and every jurisdiction is a little different, some actually require that you file an alternate perpetrator brief, which is essentially saying there was somebody else who did it. You can't just bring it out of the sky. You need to bring more evidence. And this may be required in that case. But it does do one other thing, Julia. It does bring into the possibility of negotiation, because there's a possibility of the death penalty in a case like this. And if the state's case just got a little bit weaker, you may be driving them in a different direction right now. It depends upon how this plays out before trial begins.
Oh, I think that's a really good point to bring up the death penalty. John Phillips, last 30 seconds, your thoughts on Jack's position on whether this could be something that can be used as a negotiating tool.
Absolutely. You know, everything my fellow panelists have said, I agree with. And I don't need to add to it, except happy holidays, everybody.
All right, we will leave it there. John Phillips, thank you so much for joining us. Jack Rice and Mike Gould, all of you for being a great panel this holiday weekend as we're getting closer to the weekend. All those courts closed, but still a lot happening in the world of true crime and our justice system. That's it for opening statements. We have Court TV Live coming up next.